This is the video for Excel homework number 2. So as before, go to the appropriate link, Excel homework number 2, right click, save target as, and we get save it in a place that I can use it for Excel 2010. Go to Excel 2010 and open it. File, open, Excel homework number 2. This is my file. Alright, remember, just like Excel homework number 1, I'm going to do, in this video you'll see the calculations for Excel 2007 and 2003. Actually, there are some minor changes. One minor change that's important for us from 07 to 10. There are large changes from 2003 to 2007 for this homework. Alright, so enable editing, just like we did last time for 2010. I'm going to zoom in to 2 times the original size so that we can see it easier. Type your name. I'm just going to put a generic here. You put your name. I need to right justify those to make it easier. Alright, this data set is exactly the same as Excel homework number 1, so don't send me an email saying I get the same file. It's supposed to be the same file, it's just a different name. Okay. We got to do most of the same things. We're going to do the correlation and the t-test on the correlation, and then a chart. To do the correlation we need to include the sum of squares of y, SYY. I'm going to do this one differently than the previous version, just so that you can learn something new about Excel if you don't know it already. I'm going to do this with named ranges. So first of all, to make that work, mark the data plus the labels at the top. Okay, nothing more. Then go to the data ribbon. And that's not the one I'm looking for. The formula ribbon. Alright, create from selection. Actually, create names from selection. And then you get a pop-up box that is original in Excel 2003. Alright, what Excel does is it sees the labels in the top rows, so it automatically checks top row. It allows you to change it, but we don't need to. Click OK. And what this does is really nice. It allows us to call this range, which we think of in our head as the X's. Excel now thinks of it as the X's. Look at the name box up here where my cursor is. See name box X. Right, might be a little tiny there. Same thing for the Y. The Y is now called Y. Right. Do this calculation. We need sum of squares of x, s of xx, sum of squares of xy, sxy, sum of squares of y, which we need for correlation in the testing. If we don't need to do a correlation or a test, we don't need the sum of squares of y. We'll need beta hat 1, oops, doing it again, beta hat 1, which I'll type as beta 1, and beta hat 0, which I'll type as beta 0. We'll need a correlation. Excel doesn't always like R as a named range, so I'll call it CORR. Calculate the t-value, call it t-calc. Get the critical t-value, which I'll call t-critical. Okay. I'm going to have named ranges there, so what we want is the cells to the right of those names to contain the values that we'll calculate. So mark that range. Alright, create from selection again. It sees the labels on the left. Click OK, and you can go check through here. This cell now is a named range called S of XX. Alright, this cell is named beta 1, etc. They're all given those names. So now we can calculate these values. Sum of squares of x is equal to sigma x squared. So how do we do that? Well, with named ranges we can go sum x, type the value x squared, shift 6, 2, close parentheses, minus n. Well, we don't have an n, but just like in homework number 1, we can say count the x's times x bar squared times the average x squared. Okay, if you are not listening to me and do not hit Shift Control Enter, so Shift Control Enter, do that. But let's say I'll hit F2 and you don't listen to what I say and you just hit Enter, boom, you get an error. Okay, so hit F2, Shift Control with your left hand, Enter with your right hand, and you get the value. If you look in the function or formula bar up here, you'll see little curly parentheses. Some students see that and type it in themselves. That doesn't work. Excel puts those there. Okay, Excel puts those there. So when you hit F2, those curly parentheses are not there, neither in the cell nor the formula bar. Okay, so now that I've gotten this far, I have to do Shift Control Enter again. All right, sum of squares of xy, sxy, equals the sum of x times y minus n, count the x's, that's the n, times x bar y bar, the average x times the average y, and again Shift Control Enter, and you might recognize those values from last time we did Excel homework number 1. SYY, sum of squares of y, equals sum of y squareds minus n, count the x's, that's the n, times, or the y's, doesn't matter, times the y bar squared, so that's the average y squared. Okay, again, Shift Control Enter. Beta head 1 is equal to this SXY. We have named ranges, so we can just type that in, divided by sum of squares of x, SXX, enter. Don't have to do Shift Control Enter there. Beta 0 equals y bar, so the average y minus beta 1 is our named value, times x bar, average x. Alright, again, enter is fine. It's only when you get something like x squared summed that you have trouble, and you have to go Shift Control Enter. Correlation coefficient r, sxy divided by the square root of sxx times syy, so equals sxy divided by the square root. One way to get the square root in Excel is square root times sxx times syy, close parentheses, enter. You get a correlation of negative 0.93735. Alright, since the slope is negative, I've got a negative correlation. T-calc, alright, formula's over here, equals the correlation divided by square root. So now you've got to be careful, since they're under the square root sign, there's a denominator and numerator. So first for the numerator, alright, 1 minus the correlation squared. Make sure the squared value is inside the parentheses there, divided by, open the second set of parentheses, n, count the x's, that's n minus 2, close that for the denominator under the square root, close it for the square root, enter, and I get a value of negative 4.66, etc. And again, it's negative because I've got a negative beta, negative correlation. Critical value under Excel 2010 is a little bit different than the previous versions. It's this value here. It's hard to see. I might be able to blow it up later. T.inv.2t, but double click on that. Alright, probability. We have 0.05 in the tails. Degrees of freedom, again n minus 2, so let's count x as n minus 2, and the critical value is 3.182. I want you to do a very, very simple t-test, that is to tell me if this is significant or not. Since the t-calc is beyond plus or minus 3.182, this is significant, but I want you to do it with a formula. Don't just type it in. If the absolute value, ABS, the absolute value of t-calc, right, that's absolute, strips the minus sign off, is greater than, so if 4.66 is greater than t-crit, then we have a significant correlation, significant in quotes, comma, otherwise it's insignificant. Okay, so the if statement, have a condition, alright, which is if true, significant will show up. If it's not true, insignificant will show up. Hit enter. Of course significant shows up, but just to prove to you that this works, I'll just put a value that's lower than the critical value here for a second. Boom, insignificant. I've spelled insignificant wrong, this is great. Alright. Alright, it's fixed. Alright, the last part of this is to do a chart, the XY chart, XY plot. Not a time series plot, but an XY plot. So, mark the data, the X's and the Y's. In general, if you're going to do this yourself, you need the X's to the left and the Y's to the right. Insert. You want a type of scatter diagram. We want just the dots so far. Need to take this off our data. Take off the series label just to make it look nicer. Get rid of this grid line. Alright, not completed yet. Go to any one of these points, right click, add trend line. Alright, and all this will stay the same. What I want is for you to display the equation on chart, so click that box there. Okay, and then we get this box here. I do not, and listen to me, I do not want you to type the equation onto the chart somehow. I want you to do it with the chart functions. Let Excel do it. And you'll notice that Excel puts the X first and with the intercept and with the slope and then the intercept at the end, which is sort of reverse of the way we'd normally do it. Alright, but that's your homework for Excel 2010. You would save it. It's alright. It's good that I did that. What we want to do is, not that button, sorry. File, save as, and save it as an Excel workbook instead of an Excel 2003. Alright, there are a couple of things in here that Excel 2003 doesn't like, so save it that way. Send me that file. Okay, don't change the name. Alright, from here on out I'm going to show you with Excel 2007 and then finally with Excel 2003, but if this is all you need, then you can quit here. Don't forget to send yourself a copy so that you have proof that it was sent at a particular time.